writer and seeing asters for the first time during a farm internship sparked a growing curiosity that has led to her passion for native plants. She has interned both at Neil Smith National Wildlife Refuge and for the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. Currently, she splits her time between volunteering at a local urban farm, raising monarchs at the Lynn County Monarch Research Station, and helping complete plant surveys at Lake McBride State Park. Thank you, Kara, and I turn this program over to you.
Thank you, Ruth. Oh, I'm so excited for all the people who are here to learn about some of our fall wildflowers. And for starters, let's just look at some of the ones on this screen. On the very right here is closed gentian, which you see me holding up at one of our state preserves. In the middle here is New England aster, those gorgeous purple flowers that got me into botanizing. And over here on the far left is great blue lobelia, which you might notice is in a garden setting. These I actually helped my grandparents plant at their new home. And we're going to go over every single one of them. Oh. Why is it not moving? All right, something's going on. Oh, there we go. Sorry, my computer was acting weird. But first, I'd like to share a little bit more about myself. I'm a self-professed native plant lover, environmental writer, and a podcaster. Like Ruth said, I've interned at Neil Smith National Wildlife Refuge in central Iowa. That's where I got to learn all of our state's spring ephemerals. And I was a seasonal worker for the Department of Natural Resources, raising prairie plants and collecting seed throughout Northwest Iowa. This year, I went to my first annual seminar at the Luss Hills. You can see me up in the top left corner with Kelly Madigan's writers group. And I've begun publishing my own wildflower writings in the Bleeding Heartland blog, as you can see here in the middle, and for the Iowa Native Plant Society newsletter. In the bottom left, that's me with Deb Lewis, with my first publication I ever made titled Ladies' Tresses. And down here in the middle is my Land Lovers podcast that I actually was able to do an interview with Diane Blankenship. And then over here on the right are some photos of me volunteering at the Monarch Research Station. And we're definitely going to be talking about today how fall wildflowers help our fluttery friends make their migration down to Mexico. But aside from all of that, some of you might be asking yourselves, why the focus on fall wildflowers? Some could say they're not the most showy or anything like that. But for me, they were the first wildflowers I ever met. This is a photo of some of the prairie bordering Mustard Seed Farm, where I did my organic farming internship. And just look at this just haze of goldenrod. It's just so beautiful. How can you not fall in love with this? Same thing, this is a video of us at the Calso Prairie State Preserve outside of Fort Dodge. We're just surrounded by these golden sunflowers in all directions. And something else I learned recently at a webinar where they had Doug Talamy speaking is if you go to the Native Plant Finder and you type in Iowa, chances are the floral keystone species that will pop up are going to be our goldenrods and our asters and our sunflowers. They are absolutely critical for insect biodiversity here in Iowa. So just some quick notes. Don't be me when it comes to taking wildflower photos, especially if you're trying to ID stuff. For that, you should take notes and photos of the leaves, how the leaf is attached to the stem, how many leaves there are, the petals, the color, and the habitat. Asters and goldenrods can especially be difficult to separate out in the field by species. All the wildflowers that are mentioned that are available for the Loess Hills Wild Ones August plant sale will be highlighted in yellow. The floral range maps I include are from the Biota of North America, short or long for BONAP. And it'll be either the 2018 data set, and if I couldn't find ones from the 2018 one, they'll be from the 2014 one. And all pictures are my own unless otherwise noted. So let's start with the asters, the beautiful, beautiful asters, probably my favorite fall wildflower. And this one, this photo was actually taken from a former Loess Hills webinar. This is Silky Aster. Just all these gorgeous purple flowers. And the best way to tell Silky Aster apart from other asters is that the leaves have more of a silvery coloration to them. They do prefer drier areas. Then this over here is also a New England aster. And as you can see here, the flowers are pink. For some asters, the flowers can change. They can be purple, they can be pink, sometimes they can even be white. And they're pretty tall for an aster. They can grow up to around 4 feet. And then down here, one of our plant sale ones, the sky blue aster. It tends to have, as you can see, smaller flowers and kind of narrower stems. They're just this gorgeous, gorgeous light blue color. Most asters prefer full sunlight as well, except our woodland varieties. And this is just really a taste of the asters that are native to Iowa. This is not the full gamut. And pretty much for any type of yard you have, there will be some aster to fit your needs. I will mention that, like the goldenrods, asters can kind of colonize an area of your yard. And so if you want to keep them, if you want to keep them in a certain area, I recommend growing more like clumping plants around them so they don't spread everywhere, unless of course you just want a beautiful bank of asters in your yard. So here's our distribution map. Silky Aster, pretty much from one side of the state to the other, except for some southern areas. New England aster, again, pretty much the entire state, except for some counties of the Loess Hills. And here's sky blue aster, which again, kind of all over the state, except for some of these northern areas. Moving on to the gentians, and here's our bottle gentian, a really beautiful gentian. And what's so fun about the bottle gentian is that it can only be pollinated by very strong pollinators such as bumblebees. And so if you manage to plant this in your yard, you can just watch bumblebees just forcing their way in and out of these flowers. It's a very fun experience. And then we have the downy gentian here and here. Just this gorgeous, gorgeous deep purple color. And really all the gentians are great for botanizing in the fall, just going to a prairie preserve and going to look for these treasures. They're just so beautiful. And then there's the plain gentian. It tends to be a more common gentian. It also goes by the name yellow gentian. Here's the more greenish white variety of it. And it looks the most similar to bottle gentian, though it actually is open, so more pollinators can get inside. And here's our distribution maps for them. Downey Junction, pretty much over the whole state, except in some counties here and there and along the south. Plain Junction, this is an old map, but like I have seen it pretty much in most prairies I've been to. That photo was taken where we were in Fort Dodge. And then Bottle Junction, again, pretty much throughout the state, except for our west and southern areas. And I also wanted to mention Fringe Junction. As you can see from the distribution map up here, it is considered rare in our state because it is a wet obligate species. It really loves fens. And a lot of our fens have been torn up and have undergone habitat destruction or are drying out due to climate change. And so it's becoming a little bit more rare than it once was. But mainly why I wanted to bring it up is because this one has really been a muse for poets such as Bryant and Emily Dickinson. And I'd like to read Emily's short poem about it. God made a little gentian. It tried to be a rose and failed, and all the summer laughed. But just before the snows, there came a purple creature that ravished all the hill, and summer hid her forehead, and mockery was still. The frost were her condition, the Tyrian would not come, until the north evoked it, Creator, shall I bloom? Now on to the goldenrods. And up here we have Riddell's goldenrod. Just this beautiful clump of soft golden flowers. And it does prefer wetter areas, so it's more of a northern species. And then over here, again, one of our plant cell flowers, showy goldenrod, this beautiful up and down plume, which as you can see is just covered in monarchs. If you have goldenrod in your yard, you will definitely get plenty of pollinators. Unlike this one, it won't spread as aggressively as other goldenrods because the roots actually go down instead of spreading laterally like most goldenrods do. And then down here at the bottom, we have stiff goldenrod. This one, it actually prefers drier and even waste areas. So maybe if there's a place in your yard that you've had difficulty growing anything, this one would do well. I do want to mention two things, is that most goldenrods can spread pretty aggressively in the prairie or in your yard. So again, maybe to keep them contained, a good thing to do would be to put some more gently clumping plants around them so they don't spread as much. And another thing, goldenrods do not cause hay fever. A lot of people believe goldenrods, when they're tufting and their seeds are tufting up and blowing in the breeze, are the reason we get hay fever. That is not true. It is ragweeds that are giving you hay fever. And I believe that's because their seeds disperse at the same time. And that's why people think that. But no, I have been up to my waist all around in goldenrods, and I have never developed a terrible sneeze or anything like that. And then, so here's our distribution. Stiff goldenrod, you'll find it literally throughout the entire state. Riddell's goldenrod, like I said, prefers more of our wetter northern central areas. And then showy goldenrod, pretty much the entire state except for some counties here and there. The blazing stars. I take it back about the asters. The blazing stars are my favorite fall wildflower because they are just so gorgeous. They are one of our most dramatic prairie plants. And I got to just watch them go through all the stages of blooming last year. And they start off with like these tiny white pearly buds that just get more and more like pink and then purple, and then they explode into these gorgeous plumes. But you know, starting off right here is prairie blazing star. It does prefer damper areas, and actually many prairie blazing star cultivars are being used as garden ornamentals, though of course you can just put the straight native in your yard. And then we have meadow blazing star, another plant cell plant, and it's so cute, and you can just see this monarch on it. That's another thing. If you plant blazing stars in your yard, I guarantee you will get monarchs. And that is because it's not just milkweeds that monarchs co-evolved with. They co-evolved with blazing stars as well. Blazing stars are one of the flowers they go straight to provide nectar for them on their southward journey to Mexico. And of course, there are bees and moths and plenty of other pollinators that love them too. And then there's the rough blazing star. It also prefers drier areas. I did find out that it can create dense populations after a fire in the prairie. I'm not sure though if it has the same tendency to spread aggressively in your yard. Personally, in the prairie, I've never come across like a dense patch of blazing star. They seem to like being not being super clumped up. So I think you should be okay. But of course, here's another monarch just feeding away on it. And for our distribution, rough blazing star, again, practically all over the state except for a few counties. Prairie blazing star, again, same thing. Again, this one down here for meadow blazing star is an old map. I really don't know where a more updated one can be found, but I'm pretty sure it's definitely in more counties. Onto the lobelias, these plants with these gorgeous tubular flowers. And what that means is that you are going to get long-tongued pollinators in your yard. And by that, I mean all the butterflies and hummingbirds especially. But this is a photo of some of the great blue lobelia that's growing in my grandparents' yard. Something that they've come across is that the spikes of these flowers have gotten so long that they've been flopping over and they had to stake them up. And we're working on finding some plants to grow around them. So that's just, if you decide to plant great blue lobelia, just to be aware of that, you'll probably want to plant it among other plants so it stays upright. And then the gorgeous cardinal flower, one of our few true red wildflowers. Hummingbirds love this plant. And it also prefers like low and moist areas. As you can see from the background, this one I found on the edge of a woodland. But here's our distribution map. Great blue lobelia, practically the entire state, except for a few counties here and there. And then cardinal flower prefers a more selective area, central and east, where our wetter environments are. And finally, I wanted to bring up a somewhat surprising plant, and that is that we have a certain kind of fall orchid, the lady's tresses, the spiranthes, which there are actually 8 species of it in Iowa, but they all bloom in the fall. They can be found in almost any habitat throughout the state and are actually Iowa's most common orchids compared to like the lady slippers or the fringed orchids. They all have a light vanilla scent that is reminiscent of their relationship to the famous Mexican vanilla orchid, where we get our vanilla extract from. And looking in it for fall can provide some late season botanical fun, which is how I came across it. I took this short video of it at a prairie remnant at Brushy Creek State Park. But here's the distribution for the common variety. And but again, there's 8 different species of it that can be found pretty much throughout the entire state. If you go on Bonap and look up the Spiranthes genus. And again, here's me with Deb Lewis, and my first article that I ever wrote was about finding those ladies' tresses. And I can include that in the resources at the end of our presentation for people to read. Okay, but maybe you've been sitting through this whole presentation being like, yeah, okay, Kara, whatever, fall wildflowers. I mean, yeah, I'll plant some, but after that, it's going to be boring. They're just going to sit there and add a little color, and that'll be it. Well, I have a suggestion for you if those thoughts are running through your head, and that's becoming a monarch citizen scientist, which is what I became last fall. And I wanted to talk about some of our monarch citizen scientist places and monarch initiatives that are occurring in the Midwest, and some of which are particular to our state. Starting with Journey North. This was a citizen scientist program that began out of the University of Wisconsin-Madison Arboretum. And as you can see, the byline is tracking migrations and seasons. What I really love about Journey North is that not only is it really easy to use, all you need is your phone and a picture of the event you took. But I also think what's great about it is it's not just about tracking monarchs. We're going to see some of the other things that they like to track. So it's a website it's a citizen science program you can use practically throughout the entire year. Then there's the Monarch Joint Venture, which has several locations in the Midwest, one of which I know is in Michigan. But they are a nonprofit working to create a national partnership to preserve the monarch butterfly and other pollinators. So a lot of what they do is classes, webinars, talking with other nonprofits that are also working to preserve the monarch butterfly. I was very lucky and was able to get a scholarship to one of their classes going over the entirety of the monarch butterfly life cycle and migration. And it really opened my eyes to how preserving the monarch, like I can be a drop in a wave that creates habitat change here in Iowa and in the Midwest. And then there's the Iowa State University's Iowa Monarch Conservation Consortium. And it's kind of like the Monarch Joint Venture, but just for Iowa. They help landowners create pollinator habitat. They do research on the monarch butterfly. And yeah. And then there's the Monarch Research Project here in Lynn County that's based in Marion, the place I've been volunteering at. And what we're working on there is helping to bring biodiversity back to Lynn County. We've been planting roadsides with prairie. We work with landowners to develop pollinator zones. We worked with people to erect monarch biotents so they can raise their own monarchs. Even small ones that people can just keep at home. That's just a milkweed and some caterpillars, and so they can raise their own monarchs too. And it's just been a really, really great, great opportunity for me. But I thought, because I think Journey North is definitely the most, the easiest one to use, that we could just go through how to report a sighting in it. So I open my phone and I open my Google app and I type in Journey North. And this should be the first thing that pops up. And I'm going to go down and I'm going to click report sightings. And then it'll take me to this page and I'll log in with my email and my password. And then it says to select species or event. And this is what I meant about how great Journey North is, that for reporting practically anything you see, even just daylight. Here's some of the other things they like to keep track of: hummingbirds, habitat projects, your first earthworm sighting, your first barn swallow sighting, any bald eagles you see during the year. And it even goes down like maple syrup. And you can just do milkweed. Doesn't even have to have a monarch butterfly on it, but you can report your milkweed that you have in your yard. Red-winged blackbirds, robins, tulips, and basically any signs of spring. But of course, I'm going to click monarch butterfly, and it's going to take me to this page where it's going to ask me for several things. It's going to ask me for my location, what I saw, when I saw it, how many things I saw, a place where I can upload my photo, and any comments I'd like to make before submitting my report. So I'm going to type in that I was at Indian Creek Nature Center, and just a thing to be aware of is that sometimes it'll go to, when you're searching for the location you're at, it'll go to an entirely other area. There were times I was using this at Brushy Creek State Park and I'd type in what I always typed in, and then somehow the map took me to some other place in Texas that had a similar name. So just make sure that your red marker is where you know it should be. And if not, just to make sure to type in as full of an address as you can, including the zip code. But all I did this time is to type in Indian Creek Nature Center, and it took me right to where I wanted across town. And then when I go to select what I saw, another great thing is that this covers the entirety of the monarch life cycle. So it doesn't have to be an adult. It can be anything. It can be captive reared one. It can be your monarch eggs. It can be your monarch larva at any stage at all. But I saw an adult, so I'm going to click a monarch adult sighted. I'm going to type in my date. I saw it on the 14th of July. I saw one. And then I'm going to go into choose file, and I'm going to go into my gallery, and I'm going to pick my my photo, which is this monarch on some beagle. And there's my complete report. I'm going to go down and click submit report, and then of course it's going to give me this feel good sentence: thanks for your submission. And like I said before, you can use this throughout the entire year to document your monarch sightings in your yard. But yeah, that's everything. And here are some links to some of the resources I mentioned: the Monarch Joint Venture, which practically covers everything you could ever want to know about the monarch butterfly and about other pollinators. And I highly recommend it if you're looking for some place to learn more about them. Here's the Journey North Citizen Scientist Program, the Monarch Research Project. If you're interested in the Iowa Native Plant Society, just so you know, joining the email list for it is free. You don't have to pay to be on the email list. I also wanted to include the Tallgrass Prairie Center. I've found their botany beginners classes really helpful when I was starting to learn more about botany and identifying flowers and plants in the field. And those are all recorded on their website. Also the Prairie Moon Nursery, because most of my photos that I didn't take myself were from there, and they just have really, really thorough information about growing Midwest plants. They're based in southern Minnesota, but they're just an amazing information source. We use them all the time in the DNR. And then to find more of my work, I will be continuing to write to be a guest author for the Bleeding Heartland blog. And here's the link to my Landlovers podcast on Spotify. But if we want, we can open things up for questions.
Start our video if you would. Thank you. Okay, anybody who has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or type your question in the chat or comment. Danielle and I had a couple of interesting, very, very positive comments. Loved how you had the map location where your sunflowers were located, and then with the flowers, each one. That was just wonderful to know exactly where they are. I know particular people are trying to even stick within their county. John is one that's on right now that wanted to do that. So that's very, very helpful and very appreciated. One question.
No problem. I would like to mention with the Bone app maps, that's an old one. Let's go to with these maps, just because you're in a dark green place doesn't mean that plant won't will not necessarily not grow there. It's possible you could have conditions that could let it grow there. It's just like it's just not found there at the county level.
One other comment was loved the poem. That was really a nice touch. Another question, briefly, what is a fen?
A fen, oh boy.
We can Google it.
It is, well, let's go back up to, I know that it is a kind of wetland. If you've ever gotten your hands on the Wildflowers of Iowa Wetlands, like the first 30 pages of that book are dedicated to explaining the differences between different kinds of wetlands. I mean, I can go grab it and see if I can find the fen definition. I'm not particularly sure, just because most of my outdoor experience has been in the prairie. But yeah, it's a kind of wetland.
What more research is needed, and we can Google that. And then the blue lobelia specifically, we have one yard where we're growing little blue stem around the blue lobelia, and that's holding it upright. So
great.
That's been really helpful in urban yard. And that's all.
I mean, I've been discussing with my grandparents about like they live on the other side of the state from me, and we're working on, they found a more local native plant nursery. So I'm going to be working with them this week to talk about more options for their yard. But they're really excited about getting pollinator plants in their yard.
And we had one comment from Rosemary. I have a lot of problems with deer eating asters, but they seem to ignore blazing star and goldenrod in Johnson County.
I know one of the main defense mechanisms of plants from herbivores is hairiness. You wouldn't want a hairy, bristly plant bristly leaves going down your throat as an herbivore. So I mean, I don't know what kind of aster is in your yard, but you might want to look up. I mean, Prairie Moon does a great job at labeling ones that are deer resistant. You just might want to see what kind of aster is in your yard, and if you might want to replace it with one that's more deer resistant.
And looks like Kyle added a link to what is a fen in the chat.
Oh, great. Thank you, Kyle.
Any other questions out there? Feel free to pop in. We'd love to have you. And also, I'd like to put out a little plea for, we are starting to collect seeds for our seed share coming up in November and then December. So if anybody is actually in the process of collecting seed, if you have extra seed, we would love to have that. Just connect with any one of us and we would be happy to take that off your hands.
And Ruth, right after this presentation, I can send you the online download for the ladies' dresses article I wrote.
Terrific. Yeah. Okay, barring any other questions or comments, I think we will wrap up. If anybody would like to stay on and chat, we'll stay on for another 5 minutes or so, and we're happy to just have a conversation. I want to thank you so much, Kara. This was really wonderful and just such a treat on a rainy Sunday afternoon.
Mhm.
Oh, I wasn't sure if it was raining there too. So you guys are on the other side of the state. Yeah, it's been blue. Oh, we have some blue sky now, but it was definitely gloomy earlier, and it's just so. I love watching wildflower presentations in the winter because it just gets all the pretty photos, gets you pumped up for what you're gonna see. But I can stop sharing.
Super, and we will stop our recording. And anyone who would like to can stay on and chat, or we'll probably stay on another 5 minutes or so. There.